the flexibility of work, how things will never be the same, et cetera. And let's face it, we're in an industry that went through disruption. At least that's my opinion, not cyclical. It's a disruption in our industry, just like there would be in the, horse and buggy industry, right? It's that kind of disruption. But we have to be a tool for our clients in their quest to get the most out of their people, the most productivity, the most innovation, the greatest sense of happiness, engagement, all those things.
Welcome back to Brave Ideas, where we chat with the leaders in commercial real estate to answer all questions space as a service and help office real estate reposition to meet the evolving demand from the future of work. This podcast is for anyone involved in commercial real estate in any way. If you're an investor, fund manager, developer, landlord, operator, property manager, agent, or broker, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you prefer to watch the full episode and join our newsletter, head over to braveideas.media. I'm your host, Caleb Parker, and we're back in the Brave Ideas virtual studio, or shall I say we virtually traveled to Boston, Massachusetts for a chat with Bryan Koop, or as his friends call him, Koop. Koop is Executive Vice President of BXP, formerly known as Boston Properties, which is one of the largest publicly traded office landlords in the United States. He oversees BXP's operations across the Boston region, where he leads the company's efforts to reposition office assets for the evolving needs of modern customers and long-term investors. Joining me to kick off this episode is my friend Sam Gamble, co-founder of Return Suite, our headline sponsor this season. Sam, this one with Koop was a fantastic deep dive into how one of the largest public office landlords in the U.S. is really thinking how to future-proof their office buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. BXP operates at this kind of true institutional scale. And one of the things I really appreciated in our conversation with Koop was just how candid he was about where the industry needs to evolve, especially around flex, hospitality, and aligning with kind of occupier behavior.
Yeah, I was curious about that myself because BXP is really known for having premium assets in their portfolio. So I was curious Koop's view on the full flight to quality, particularly as it pertains to these amenities and especially what footprint flex should have. And he explained his rationale behind having 30 to 40,000 square feet of flex in a 2 million square foot building.
Yeah, I also really liked kind of how forward looking Koop is, kind of approaching tenants. I mean, he had this story where he approaches a tenant, well before the end of their lease because he saw that they were underutilizing their space, and he moved them into kind of a smaller, more appropriate space, and then was able to kind of backfill the now vacant space. And it's really this kind of like problem solving mentality and customer focus that you wouldn't expect to see at a landlord even like a quarter the size as BXP.
Yeah, it's a testament to why they've kept their customers so long. I think it's, problem solving mentality is a hospitality mentality. And, he was really honest about the challenge of communicating these models to investors who still want that quote coupon clipper predictability.
Yeah, I also really like how kind of Boston Properties can afford to kind of test these different models out across their different assets. They can kind of gather the data and refine their offering before deploying it kind of more widely across a portfolio, that they kind of take this kind of experimental approach.
Well, he gave an example of a food and beverage operator he undertook a revenue sharing lease with. And I thought that was interesting how he explained how that worked. So I naturally asked if he would apply the same to flex office operators.
Yeah. and for investors trying to underwrite office assets going forward, kind of the model that Koop described, this hybrid structure, may become a lot more common in the future.
Well, it's certainly something I've been diving into, and let's go ahead and dive into this episode. So 3, 2, 1, let's kick it. Welcome to Brave Ideas, Koop.
Hey, Caleb, it's good to see you and connect and hear from you. You're one of the people that I connected with during COVID when we took the class together, and I really appreciate the fact that you've stayed in connection with me. I think I was the oldest student in that class, by the way.
I don't know. I have no comment on that one. It's like we're all people trying to learn, right?
Well, it was a lot of fun, and it's been just great to stay in touch with you. I'm a huge fan of you and your podcast.
Thank you. It has been good. I can't believe it's been 5 years since those times, and I've met so many people. Big shout out to Anthony Slumbers for putting that together. I knew Sam before, but Sam was also on the course, and we had some good times diving into some of those details.
After that course, Caleb, Anthony was one of our guest keystone speakers at Boston Properties University.
Tell me more about Boston Properties University. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so once a year in September, we hold call it BXP University Day now. And it's a half-day event, and essentially it's a series of 4 TED Talks. But years ago, it started as our people teaching each other, and we'd break up and go into different groups. And it's evolved into a TED Talk, and we do it we've done it over at MIT. We've done it at really great locations around the city of Boston. And it's really caught on. It's become kind of an industry thing in the city, and seats are sought after, and we've been very lucky with getting, speakers like Anthony. And we also had his partner Droke speak last year. So we've had really great speakers, and it's a great day for us to expose our people to different things that are way outside of, call it, the commercial real estate bubble.
And so is that just for BXP team members, or is it open to people across the industry?
We open it to BXP associates and clients. So we've got a lot of heads of real estate coming in from big name firms that we're honored to have as clients. But then we open it up to call it friends of the firm. And there'll be, several key brokers we do a bunch of things with, or it could be construction companies we do things with, or top architecture firms as well. So it's a lot of fun, and it's a big, call it, mashup, and maybe some of the best stuff comes after the speakers during the cocktail hour.
Oh, well, that's when all the juicy details come out. Well, I'm curious now, because if Anthony was there, there's no doubt he spoke about AI. But what I'm really curious about is, what did people say about Anthony and AI at the cocktail hour?
They loved it. He brings such a international perspective to things. That was probably the thing that most of the Bostonians viewed as so refreshing, was this outlook from a different perch and a different perspective on how work will be in the future, where it's going, and then some real candid, forecasts, which shook a lot of people. And that was the debate, was some of Anthony's predictions about, the flexibility of work, how things will never be the same, et cetera. And let's face it, we're in an industry that went through disruption. At least that's my opinion. Not cyclical. It's a disruption in our industry, just like there would be in the, horse and buggy industry, right? It's that kind of disruption. So I agree with Anthony, but that shook the room in a bigger way. When it comes from somebody else, Caleb, right? It has a different meaning than me preaching it.
Well, that's one of the things I've always admired about you. You lean into the future, and you are embracing the changes that are happening, the disruption, the inflection points that we've gone through. And, in the past 5 years, I've seen a lot of conversation in the media, online, in my direct one-on-one conversations. I have to say, there are more people coming around to it, but you were one of the first from the conventional real estate world to really embrace it. So I've admired that. But that leads me to my first question, a real question for you, my scripted question, so to speak. BXP, you guys, if you look at any of the markets you're in, you have some of the most premium assets out there. And we've seen this huge trend to flight to quality. You don't want to be in the middle right now, but I'm curious, with your track record of developing these premium assets, what is it that sort of qualifies that premium or the premier asset, in your opinion, for the market that we're in today?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. As you mentioned, the middle's a tough place to be, but I think the tail is as well. The sector that we really want to be in is that, let's say it's the upper right-hand quadrant, high quality with the association with high price premium properties that people really appreciate. Our definition would probably be a little bit different per leader you're talking to. But for this leader sitting with you today in our company, it's not about the things that we use to measure, like, oh, is there granite in the lobby? Oh, is there this type of amenity and a check the box thing for, let's say, fitness, and there's a lousy fitness center in it. It's at a different level now. What we're really focused on is providing the best place for the performance of that client. It is all about each company or organization that we have is looking for the best, call it, people power strategy. right? It's about productivity from your people. If you can do that without office, our clients would. So we have to be a tool for our clients in their quest to get the most out of their people, the most productivity, the most innovation, the greatest sense of happiness, engagement, all those things. So a building to us that is a premium property and to my team here in Boston may not have those attributes that, let's say, the conventional brokerage community would still consider class A or super class A, those types of things. You know, it used to be, well, it's a Philip Johnson building, right? Or it's got this type of ceiling height, not necessarily high, but maybe it's a foot higher, right? Those types of things used to be the things that everybody focused on. And it tended, in our opinion, to be very commodity oriented. And we were always just really fighting this notion of the commoditization of real estate. And that was, you know, it's probably easier for the brokerage community, right, to work through things and put things in classes and say, well, that's what you pay for class A. We really don't look at it. If you look at the top performing building we have in Boston is a mid-block building. It is only 21 stories. It's a shorter building than our skyscrapers, but it is categorically the most productive for our clients, and we're rewarded with the highest rental rates in that building. Now, it's on top of an Eataly at the Prudential Center. It's got a subway stop. It is in the Back Bay, which is just a wonderful submarket, probably the best submarket in all of Boston. It is connected to all the things that the Prudential Center has, which is the equivalent of Rock Center, let's say, for New York. And you've got all these amenities that just make it a powerhouse of a location and a building. And then on top of that, we designed it to be Boston's most sustainable building. But within that envelope, it's got huge clear heights. It's got chilled beam. It's got really the best natural light penetration of any of our buildings. And, you know, what a surprise. The clients love it. So to our team here in Boston specifically, Premier is those types of attributes that have to do more with the lives inside of these buildings than the conventional things that I think the marketplace is still leaning back to, right? What's a super class A? Well, they tend to be the same buildings that they used to measure in super class A. But then when we look at it and go, well, that's ranked as super class A. Well, it's 50% leased. It's been 50% leased for the last 10 years. The floor plates are awful. Yeah, back in the 80s, that was probably considered really a great address and a great building, but it doesn't add up for us, and we'd never buy it.
A couple things you just talked about that I want to unpack, because you talk about Back Bay and right above the subway station. I hear location, 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 which is something that's been around in real estate for ages. Then you talk about the amenities and what's around in the building. What I want to unpack, though, is a little bit deeper, because I think when I see BXP properties, whether it's the 24th story or whether it's the 60th story somewhere, it's always one of the top of the market locations and assets, and always come in as the high rents and has good occupancy. That's BXP, right? But what is it though? Because the building right across the street is also right next to the subway and in a great location with amenities around it. So what is it that makes people say, I'm going to go to BXP versus this other building here? What is it that makes it premium?
You know, I think one attribute that the clients have finally focused on, and their representative, is who's the sponsor. Because, you know, the average length of ownership pre-COVID, I don't know what it is now, Caleb, but average ownership in Boston was 47 months. I mean, that's ridiculous to us. That's a flip within every 4 or 5. It's crazy. And you have a transition of property management. You have a transition of beliefs, philosophies, investment into a building. And the best clients have really started to focus on, okay, who's going to own and operate this thing for the long term? Because I need to have a great relationship with them. I think that's finally become a differentiator, but for years it wasn't. We'd hear the broker representing the client saying, yeah, we know you're a long-term owner, but they really don't care. That's not true anymore of the top clientele. Now, It may be true for many other potential clients of ours, but for the top clientele, they're focused on it. The other is that if you look at our best assets, and this is something we're studying a lot more, our team here, is the analytics of the cluster. So every one of our clusters where you have these buildings and they're right packed next to each other. So we got 5 office buildings at the Prudential Center on top of our retail and, next to hotels, et cetera, et cetera. It just outperforms everything. We have zero space right now, Caleb. Now, wrap that around your head, given the condition of the rest of the market. But the cluster is becoming more and more important. We can move clients around from building to building. We can reduce space for clients more easily because we don't have debt on these buildings and we don't have the friction attached to it. You look at Reston, Virginia, which is another great example. So Reston, for those who don't know, is probably the granddaddy of all master plan communities in America. And we basically own the downtown cluster of Reston. I mean, the city streets, everything. We throw a Thanksgiving parade, right? So it's the same thing as the Pru, except it more or less in this huge mixed use, let's say lifestyle place where we own the apartments. We don't own the hotel, but we own the office buildings. We own the retail, et cetera. That is performing the same way. You cross the street and you're in a product that's more of a 1980s, let's say office building on a campus, and you pull in and you go, oh my gosh, it feels so lonely here, right? The difference between our product there is 30% on rent, and Reston probably is running at 92% occupancy, and the markets could be 65. The cluster is where we're going to focus, Caleb. There's tremendous power in it. And you look at Kendall Square, we own about 4 million square feet there. It's all within one city block.
It creates the opportunity, not just for economies of scale, but to place make. And when you bring in the mixed use aspect of it, you don't have a CBD that it's just office. And if nobody's coming into the office, you don't have anything else. You've got a mixed use and you've got an ecosystem that people want to be within.
Yeah. We have a marketing department now, which didn't even exist years ago. And when you look at that, for us, it's an innovation of itself, but it's more than a marketing department. It's where our placemakers are part of that department. So we have a placemaker at Kendall, at the Prudential Center. And it is a huge difference. It's not just the little things that all the, let's say, check the boxes would do where, oh, we're going to have, a little jazz band today. No, it's much more than that. It's guest speakers. It's things on the weekend. It's a much deeper relationship with the client and the community. And we're seeing the payoff. Whereas years ago, you'd go, I don't know, are we getting anything out of it? Well, we can measure it now.
It's music to my ears, the community programming, relationships with customers. I mean, this is, kind of new terminology in the office world. One of the things that I think we're building up to in everything you're describing, we haven't said the word, but I think you're describing brand. BXP is becoming a brand in real estate, which is also not really heard of unless you're talking about to the investor community, but to the customer, building a relationship with them and delivering an experience that they really align with and want to be a part of. That's a brand promise. And I think it's a testament to that. When I learned in our previous calls, many landlords throughout those horrible COVID years lost tenants and BXP didn't.
No.
What was it that drove that? Why? How did you manage that?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the goodwill that was already in it, right? These clients have been with us for many of them for 40 years, right? So there was goodwill going in that paid off in a catastrophe. It used to be we'd have days where we'd go, this is the right thing to do. This is how we do our business, et cetera. But you always wondered, will it pay off? Is there return on it? The conventional thinking was no. Well, it paid off in COVID. The other was, I would say that we were incredibly proactive with our clients. There's a client that I won't name just for their own privacy that during COVID, we were working on a satellite spoken wheel concept with them. And when COVID was over, we deployed it. And it's been a huge success. So the basis is big headquarters in Boston, in one of our buildings. Hey, we'd like to reduce that square footage, put it in the suburbs. We anticipate more flexibility from our associates, et cetera, and we want to be able to accommodate that. That was done in the darkest days of COVID. You can't do that though unless you got a relationship with that client, right? They're not going to take your call if they don't know yet, right? And we actually had meetings with this particular client in open air tents so that everybody could get together, spread apart. People were going, how did you did a deal like that even during COVID? Yeah, it was really adaptation at our best. And we use it a lot with our own associates as a example. So those would be the couple things that come to mind that we did during COVID that were, I think, the difference makers, Caleb.
Well, it's not limited to COVID, and it certainly paid off the relationships you have with your customers and the brand that you're building. If we move from Boston to DC for a moment, I understand in the news, I read this, and I'd love to get you to elaborate. You've acquired a site in central Washington, DC, and you secured it and did the acquisition with 70% pre-let with a customer.
Yep.
Can you walk us through how you managed to do that? That's like a dream.
Yeah, especially in a market that has plenty of space, right? This is one that's a testament to where, let's say, the puck is going in this discussion about flight to quality. So first off, hats off to our leaders down there, Pete and Jake, who pulled this off with the legendary Ray Ritchie. We have a relationship with a particular law firm. Over the last few years, we stay in touch with them. We work with them, hear about their aspirations, hear about what they want, and we go to the market and start looking around. And where can we find what they're looking for? And a lot of what they were looking for had the attributes of what I described for our building in Boston. Was they wanted more natural light. They wanted higher ceilings. And for those listeners who know DC, there's particulars about DC in terms of your height capability. You can't go higher than, I think, the Capitol, and it's a certain height in feet. So what most of the buildings there have is shorter clear heights to get another floor in. Well, the customer of the future doesn't want to go along with that, right? They want what they want. They want greater productivity. They want to be in the right location for what they're doing today. So it was a combination of taking all their needs. And then there was this location that was fabulous, but a bad building. So we worked out a deal where we bought the building at a price that was good enough to be able to knock down the building. Our team down there kept the foundation parking, and we rebuilt the office building to the specification of that client with some surplus on top of it. And it's just, to us, probably one of the best examples I have for you of how powerful the need is for clients to have the right space, because they're clearly paying a over market, if you describe it over market, because there's a lot of space there, right? But what good is it if it's the wrong space? And I had a mentor of mine who years ago would say to me, from my Trammell Crow days in Texas, he'd say, well, Koop, there's a big difference between a tire that you can patch and a tire that's ripped forever. And there's a lot of buildings that are ripped forever. They're obsolete and don't work for that premier client, right? They know what they want, and they're going to go out of their way to get it because the productivity of their people is that important. Now, I would still say there's only a certain percentage of clients like that, Caleb. I mean, it's not the whole sector.
Yeah, fair enough. There's not a ton of 20-year leases out there like there used to be either. We'll come on to Flex in a moment, but just on that one deal though, out of curiosity, the building itself, you guys acquired a site and you're repositioning a building. Are you retrofitting a building? Are you building from scratch? What's that one looking like to make sure you deliver it for this customer?
It's really building from scratch. I think there's pieces of the foundation and pieces of the underground parking that was there that our team is still utilizing, but it's really from scratch building for the occupiable space. And, of course, it's going to have a totally different skin, totally different systems, et cetera. All the things that you'd want for a healthier climate within these buildings, better environment for work. I think it hits on, you brought up brand. This is one I'd be footnoting again. Years ago, we'd go, oh my gosh, will brand ever pay off, right? It was always questionable. And you had many different companies saying, oh, we're going to do this national brand, and oh, we'll put a little sticker in the revolving door that'll say XYZ, and people will start to appreciate that. Well, it never really played off, did it? And it finally has. But it's only going to be for a certain sector of the clientele that are really focused on premier workspace. But the brand factor is absolutely there.
If you're a landlord, operator, or investor without a big team or expensive tools, this is for you. Did you know you don't have to be a freak in the sheets to compete with the REITs? I'm talking about spreadsheets. You know how painful it is. Long builds, fragile formulas, missing assumptions. And even when it's finally working, you still wonder if you can trust it, let alone present it with confidence to investors and lenders. Return Suite changes all of that. Save hours or even days. Its intuitive interface lets you model a property's cash flow in minutes with no Excel mastery required. Model with precision, enter actual rent, CapEx, debt, lease roll schedules, and much more. Build trust by collaborating in real time, upload operating cash flows, and generate polished, transparent reporting dashboards for any stakeholder. With Return Suite, you're in control. Every assumption is fully traceable, nothing breaks under real-world complexity. And drumroll for my Brave audience, they're building a flex space module too. Head over to returnsuite.com/brave to start modeling better deals today. These days, it's hard for companies to predict far into the future of how their business is going to grow or shrink or optimize, etc. Two questions, just loaded question. Are you seeing customers want access to overflow space, aka flex space? And on the back of that, whether you see that or not, are you building those into your stacking plans for a building?
Yes and yes. I'd say that we are seeing a need for, call it flexible, immediate space by our existing clients that could have these longer term leases. It could be they have a special project. It could be they bought somebody, which is a significant thing taking place in the law industry right now. The legal industry is going through an incredible M&A/acquisition of talent for certain departments going to another law firm, et cetera. So we're seeing a lot of activity in that zone for our Flex product. And then we're also seeing some specialization taking place in the broker representation sector. There's a couple groups on a national basis that have deal teams that only are working on, call it the Flex requirements for their big client. So if a national firm has a big client for the whole country, they'll break the team into, okay, you're going to work the temporary stuff team over here because you're really good at that and you know each market, who's got it, who doesn't, who's good at it, who isn't. And then the other team over here, our conventional team, you're going to go work the long-term requirement. That's a trend that is emerging. It's pretty quiet right now, but it's one we're really focused on, and our team is trying to build relationships with that Flex representation group. The product that we have is quite different than, let's say, the regular market's view of whether it was co-working, et cetera. And this probably goes back to when I was in the class with you years ago, and I was probably having a heated discussion about this whole sector because I really felt as if there was a lot of, call it deceit in the fundamentals of the business and saw incredible flaws in it and a lot of shenanigans. Our product is this simple. Flex is a product that it's about your space, your brand, how you want it, no hassles. A client can come in, see a suite that is basically a storefront like retail on a regular office building floor, but everything is glass on that corridor. You get a storefront, you look in. If you want to tint the glass, you can. The space is more industrial from standpoint of polished concrete. We are going with some different surfaces on the new ones and a set of desks. You can add more desks. You can do whatever you want, but you're going to lease it on a monthly basis. Credit card's fine. 3-page agreement, license agreement, but we'll lease it to you on a year too, if you like.
What's the size of these units?
Anywhere from, let's say, 1,500 feet to probably 5,000 square feet.
Yep. Okay. Spec suites, plug and play, ready to go. It's powered with internet.
Powered with internet. That's also our IT team. Jim Whalen's done a wonderful job of making sure that our Wi-Fi, you can be up and running the day you walk in with your entire team with a pipe that has huge capacity and also security, which in our opinion was a real big risk factor in, let's say, the conventional co-working world of the past. We saw that as there was a huge gaping hole in risk there that I'm not sure anybody's still focused on, but we are, and the clients really appreciate that capability. Walk in and bam, they're really in business. But what we offer you is call it centralized amenity center on that floor. It's a common area. It's got, a bunch of great things, kitchen wise, et cetera. But we're not going to have wine and cheese parties for you. We're not going to bring in guest speakers that mean nothing to you anyways. We're not going to try to control your social life, all those things. What does happen is a lot of the clients within Flex get to know each other and they end up doing social things to begin with. And I'd much rather say, hey, I heard you guys were getting together. How about you guys get a box set for the Celtics game? That's the kind of thing we'd like to do. And that product has just fit in perfectly with our bigger buildings, about 1 million square feet. So for every 1 million square feet, I'd like to have 30 to 40,000 square feet of flex in every one of those. And it really just provides us with a great way to incubate clients, get to know them, but also accommodate those clients that, let's say, are in transition where they want to expand with us maybe on another floor, but we got to build it out. Well, now they can pop right into the flex space and be together immediately, and then be able to watch their permanent space be built, etc. Big believer in it, and we think there's a lot of growth in it for us, and it's a differentiator for the cluster.
Just on that ratio for a moment, the 30 to 40,000 square feet in 1 million to 2 million square feet asset. I don't know how much granularity we can get into here, but presumably what I've seen is those flexible spec suites, you get a higher NOI on those footprints. You're charging for that flexibility that people are willing to pay for. You have high demand for it. Is there a rationale behind the actual 30 to 40,000 square feet? Do you keep it there? Do you want to grow it because you get higher NOI? Do you need to keep it lower because of you don't have debt leverage? Maybe you don't have the lender issue that people have, but why 30 to 40,000 square feet?
I think we stumbled on it in terms of the Prudential Center. It's about a 30,000 foot floor plate. Maybe it's 35. And that plate has really worked out well. The surprising thing was that every client that we had going into COVID, that floor was 100% occupied with clients. It came out 100%. And it still mystifies me to this day because everybody had the right to terminate. That may be an anomaly. It was maybe that certain collection of clients. But however, it was a big footnote to us in terms of what took place. We could have that floor in any one particular year. It could be down having 2 spaces available. So there is turn in it. Make no mistake. But we've never had a desire for, let's say, the Prudential Tower to do another floor. That's just worked out really perfectly in terms of we never feel like, oh my gosh, we've got all this vacancy. Maybe 1 to 2 spaces, but that's about it. So there's 1 to 2 spaces generally available for somebody, which we want, right? And then that really works for the NOI return. Also, one thing to bring up is the walls dividing the spaces are all modular, so we can break holes into them immediately and open up walls so one client can just blow right into the 2,000 feet next to them.
So I like the fact that you've recognized it's a lead generation for the rest of the building. Companies come in, they grow, or they come in, they can flex, they can take bigger space and go in there temporarily until that space is ready for them. Using that same mindset about the lead gen, I believe the building should have another layer below that. So if you think about a sort of a funnel, and that layer below it is the co-working layer that you think there's a lot of shenanigans in, but that co-working layer of, the hot desking, the memberships, the private executive suites or serviced offices, as they say over here in the UK. And then you've got the layer that you have is the managed spec suites. And then you've got the traditional. In your stacking plan, do you go out and curate and put co-working in a footprint as well?
We haven't found the right provider of those services yet that has longevity, et cetera, and would provide the services at the level we'd like. What we are doing in the case of 200 Clarendon, which was originally called the John Hancock Tower, one of the premier buildings in Boston, we have taken a floor, one of our bigger floor prints at the bottom of the building, 40,000 feet, and created a club. And that club will have a capacity to have an event of, I think it's 350 to 375 people. So any client up above could say, hey, we need to have an all hands event. We need it tomorrow. We just want a big deal. We want to celebrate. We want to do a presentation. Done. Next to that is a great, call it cocktail bar area with buffet capabilities, etc. Bunch of meeting rooms that are fully equipped with all the great technology that any client would want. The library for some quiet space, and also the equivalent of let's say Equinox quality fitness, and it's of that size too, and quality. All of this is free for the customers in the building. So if you're a client in the building, your associates can use our health club for free.
And are you paying for that through a service charge, or how are you covering the cost of that?
We built it into the total operating expenses of the building, working with our clients to understand what something like this would cost. And it's just a much better way to go than, getting in the business of selling memberships. And, we don't want that friction either with the clients, right? Part of the reason you see the low attendance in some of the health facilities and buildings is just that. Well, you got a membership thing, and the young person, let's say in that group, may have another health membership. Well, stop it, right? Stop it. Stop the friction.
Fair enough. Is it open to the public then, the club or the well-being, the fitness?
Just only to that building, the 200 Club. We'll have you visit us, and that'll be opening up this May, somewhere around there, June-ish. Really excited about that. That's one where we're going to watch the analytics on that a lot, Caleb.
Is your team operating that, the same team that's running the managed spaces as well? Are they running this club?
We've outsourced the call it food and beverage side, catering, and then we've outsourced the health.
It's interesting. I think one of the things I like about what BXP is doing is taking, for instance, the Clarendon 200 Club, having that amenity there for the people in the building. They don't have to have that space within their own footprint. It's smart. I like that. Personally, I think it should be open to the public, and somebody should be selling it and monetizing it when it's not being used by the building. But then you've got the conversation that you would have internally about, well, what if my customers need it then? Because they're the priority. So I get that. I think curating the right F&B experience is super important. I'm very curious about your percentage rent conversation, and I'm going to give you another two-pronged question here on that, because I want to dive into that a little bit before we bring it back to co-working. So the percentage rent, some people, I've heard it called a turnover lease. Some hotels, you call it a management agreement, and you have the waterfall. The big question, and maybe Sam might come in and ask another question on the back of this, but the big question is, how do you, when you're looking at your asset business plan, how do you underwrite that? Do you get the restaurant to send you their P&L performas, and then you then insert it into yours? How does that whole financial piece go?
The way it's worked for us so far, and we've got probably 4 to 5 in Boston this way, is, let's say at 100 Federal, we had this situation where we had a great location for a restaurant, and we had just redone the whole lobby and extended it out and created this incredible atrium, all glass. It's almost like the Louvre, and it's a gathering spot for everybody in downtown Boston, which is what we wanted. But 2 of our anchor clients in that building said, we really, really would love if you had a restaurant that did the following things, right? And it had to be very high end. It didn't need a celebrity chef. It needed to be a great place for lunch where they could take a business associate, a client that they're trying to sell, etc. And it was kind of that watering hole that we all miss so much, on the Thursday night or the Wednesday night, etc. For that, what we did was, instead of going out trying to do some long-term lease with somebody and opening it up to the market, we had a relationship with a group that had always performed for us. So we went to that group, to the partners, and said, here's what we got. What would you guys do? And they came up with the concept, and we were like, yeah, love it. We showed it to our clients. Clients loved it, gave them some feedback. Now you're building a relationship straight on between those clients and these partners, which is super important in these situations, because let's face it, whether they survive or not is going to be dependent on those key clients in the building, because downtowns just aren't the same anymore in terms of the weekend traffic, et cetera. And then we said, okay, let's do a pro forma. What's it going to take to build this out the way you want? What part are you guys putting in? What part are we putting in? And it ended up that we did most of the hard cost stuff. But when it came to the aesthetics, the decorating, the furniture, etc., it was there, Bill, and we cut a straight percentage deal. I think we only have one other break point in it. We didn't want to make it too complicated. The goal was, let's make sure these guys survive and they're fired up about the place and want to put their best people on it, etc. Because if they're not fired up and there's no profitability goals for them, it's just not going to work. So that's the way we did that one, and it's really, really paid off.
Sam, I think I know you've got some questions on this, so jump on in.
Yeah, perfect. Well, yeah, thanks, Koop. I guess I'm just kind of curious. Like, it's kind of a different model, one with the 200 Club, where you're forfeiting rentable space, and in a way, forfeiting revenue. You do collect some of it back on kind of OpEx recoveries. And then just this idea of doing kind of percentage rent deals, it adds kind of grayness to the revenue line, which, kind of hardcore real estate investors don't like. That's why they're in office. They like that kind of bond-like kind of coupon clipping of the cash flows. I'm just kind of curious how you guys look at that. How do you sell that to investors? How do you present that? How do you underwrite that?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something that is one of our professor from the academy, Anthony Slumber's thesis is in the future, it's going to be less about these bondable long-term leases, et cetera. I think that's a component of it, but I think the vehicle we have as a REIT allows us to do this, right? That particular building, we have no debt on it. It's 100% our ownership. When you have a situation like that, you can take bigger, bolder moves that are different than you've done in the past. And I would say that this move to me it's a testament to our leadership, to Owen Thomas and Doug Lindy, to be able to go, okay, we're going to try this and see what it does and see how important it is, because we believe this is what the customer is telling us. We had a couple big renewals that were tied to doing this, right? So we're able to get a lot of, call it, feedback in an economic way that the customer, big clients that you would be highly recognizable of, that you'd never want to lose, right? Never want to lose XYZ client. And they loved the idea, right? They were all aboard. So that was really helpful in providing, let's say, the courage to do it, and also being able to run the financials in a way where you go, okay, if we do this, we're going to get this client at this rate, et cetera. So that was a big part of it. I think it's the advantage that we have as a REIT in our particular setup, because I would agree with you. If you're a building owner and you got a stack of different players that are your equity in it and your debt and et cetera, I think it's really hard to be able to say, hey, amigos, we're just going to do a floor for free.
Just do it.
Yeah, but I think it goes to what Caleb's been hitting on, which is that one of the factors that'll be this definition of the new premier product? Will that be a key in the future? This type of attribute, this type of capability in the building. And my hunch is that it is, especially based off of the response we're getting.
Right. So you're kind of proving it. You're proving it out. You're proving out the thesis.
Which is, let's face it, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
On our end, we're exploring and underwriting these amenities, but we don't put them in as cost centers. We put them in as profit centers. The trade-off is it's not exclusive to the tenants of the building. They might get a little bit of priority, but it's not exclusive to them. So when they're not using it, it's being monetized through the market. But it just changes the underwriting when you do that.
It sure does. And I think it's situation specific. So at the Pru, we haven't had a need to do, let's say, the fitness facility in that way. We've got a new flagship Lifetime Fitness coming, and it'll be 80,000 feet. So that, in our opinion, hits that category 100% for our clients in the project, because it'll have everything, right? Health and wellness, doctors, et cetera. So that'll be a whole new zone for us. And for that particular cluster at the Pru, that's how we look at, okay, do we have what we have over at Tuner Clarendon? Yes, we do. We got Lifetime Fitness. They'll take care of that. I think we do need to find some big event space like we've talked about, where a client can gather 300 people at a crack. That is a huge deal right now with our bigger clients. And somebody could say, well, now you're competing with the hotels. These clients don't want to go to a hotel. It just isn't what they want, right?
No. And I think that's when you get into the convenient conversation, and those folks, they do a good job with that size event space. Can we go back to the restaurant example you gave, the relationship that you had, and you said, let's do it with these guys. When you guys covered the hard costs, they put in the soft costs. Is that now a lease on a turnover, or as you say, revenue sharing sort of rent? Is it a joint venture? How does the legal structure look on that?
It's a lease, but it's set up as a percentage rent. But the way that you get the flexibility is the term, at what point either party can kick out.
Okay.
I think on that one, it's after 5 years, if the restaurant is not doing X per square feet in sales, either party can hit the termination button.
So, given this approach with the food and beverage and the demand for, particularly from small businesses, the SMBs of the world, SMEs over here, that for co-working, tapping in by the day, getting membership or members club experience by the month, or executive suite by the year, they're not ready yet to be in the full managed suite for 5,000 square feet or a traditional space. If you've had a operator that you believed in and the underwriting made sense, would you do a percentage rent with that operator and that footprint the same way you're doing it with the restaurant?
I think we'd look at it. We just haven't found the right group that we think has the longevity or the chops on operations. And then I would say maybe that this is an interesting factor. So on our flex space, we've got the rule of 10. And what we found is that every one of our clients in these spaces, when you get into their story and you go, okay, so why did you decide you needed your own space like this? It's still not, long-term permanent lease. It's still flexible. Why did you decide you needed to be in your own space, so you can do your own, is it brand, whatever. And one of the factors is 10 people. Once you get 10 people in your organization, it seems to be a magic button to, I think it's time we get our own space, or I think it's time we get out of the co-working space, or it's time we get out of my mom's basement, right? Whatever it is, it's time that they have their own space for, maybe it's privacy, security, maybe it's branding. They're bringing clients in. They want to look more real, etc. Or it could be just recruiting talent. In the case of the Crew, it's a great location, right? And it was maybe getting hard recruiting people in mom's basement, But the rule of 10 has been really interesting to me. And the big thing I think, though, with the rule of 10 is, boy, that's a great filter for us in terms of at what point maybe we should be paying attention to that particular potential client. So I think the thing I'd have to think through, Caleb, would be, how important is it to have the membership individual thing in a building? Not as important as the flex product that we've described here.
It's interesting to hear the different perspectives, and certainly market to market.
I'd love to hear Sam's take, because Sam, you've lived it, right? And you know how deep that market is of that member for in and out.
Yeah, I mean, we had a really hard time with any kind of co-working because we were just competing against free coffee shops. And so now we were in a much smaller market than Boston, so it's probably more like the rule of 3 for us, or maybe even 2 when you no longer want other people overhearing your work conversations.
Right. Or you need more than 3 tables or something.
Yeah. We were really popular with very small groups. It was almost always more than one person, that's for sure. And it's funny, going back to what you were saying before about how nobody left during COVID. We actually found the same thing, and everybody was on month to month. And my theory is that you could always leave next month. It was a little bit like a gym membership. Maybe you'll want it next month, but anybody that was on a really long-term lease, they're immediately trying to figure out, okay, how do I get some liabilities off my balance sheet here? So yeah, we found the shorter the lease, the longer they stayed. Which seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because I'm buying off on, hey, maybe next month.
I want to ask you this next question, Koop. You've obviously been a pioneer in the real estate world, especially in these past 5 years when we've talking about leaning into the future, but also when it comes to sustainability. We can list off all of the assets you guys have made, brought it up to the proper ESG standards, and from Boston's first green skyscraper is at the Atlantic Wharf building, right? Yep. You've got, Boylston, then you've got this climate resiliency installation, aquarium, fence. I could go on and list all this stuff, but you also believe that maybe real estate is getting sustainability wrong. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So you may be picking up on some comments I've made to some mutual friends, Caleb. I'm starting to get more vocal on this, but I recently was reading, I don't know if you know Spencer Glendon. He's, I think, the premier climate economist in the world. We're lucky enough to know him. He was a client of ours, a big client, and he has since retired, and he started a group called Probable Future. And what he wrote in his most recent, he writes a big paper every 6 months, which I read like an investor would read Buffett's annual report. And what Spencer said recently captured how I'm feeling. And it was something along the lines of this. He said, the green community I love, it's all great, but why is it that the biggest majority of the green community, whether it's politicians or whether it's prop tech people or commercial real estate people, et cetera, it's a lot more fun selling salvation than it is actually executing on salvation. What he really meant was, boy, it's fun out there saying, oh, these are the goals we should have, and these are the criteria and the code we should have, but they have no idea how to execute these things. And also there's, in Spencer's opinion, a alarming, call it misplacement on appropriate things to measure. And one of the things I really get to when he brings that up is, everybody, no matter what conference you go to, it's all about carbon, right? And just this carbon thing. Nobody talks about the big three, which is how we focus. And the big three are water conservation, how you use water. I mean, fresh water is like incredibly low percentage of the whole planet, right? It's like, I think it's less than 6%. This is incredibly valuable to humanity, right? Nobody talks about it in sustainability. And when we bring up what we've done with, let's say, a rain harvest system at Atlantic Wharf, everybody goes, yeah, ho-hum, but nobody's doing it, right? Well, we need to do more of this and consume less fresh water. That would be a really smart thing to do. And then on the energy side, keeping our energy costs down, I'm going to go back to that in a minute. And materials, of course, what materials you're using, recycling, et cetera. On the energy side, though, it gets into this complexity of the carbon calculation, right? There is nobody who calculates carbon emissions the same way. So from my perspective, where there's complexity, there's duplicity, right? Maybe it was Einstein who said that, but I love it. And the whole factor that one association calculates it this way, one country calculates it this way, one state calculates it a different way, that really leads to some problematic things to me. So when you get into, okay, here's the goals we want to achieve. And as an example, let's say it's a regional city that says we will be carbon neutral by 2030, 2040, whatever their date is. And then you get into, okay, well, what's it going to take? Well, we better electrify everything. Okay, how are we going to do that? Well, if we electrify everything, we're going to need more power. We're going to need more substations. So your power company needs to put up new infrastructure, new substations. And the first thing the community does is say, well, I don't want it in my backyard, right? And there is, in several circumstances we've been in, there is no way that there's going to be the amount of substations possible for electrification. And then you go, okay, well, we got to figure out a different way to meet our goal, don't we? Well, what would that be? Well, a possibility could be natural gas. And one factor that I think Spencer brings up is, oh my gosh, if you changed and used natural gas, American natural gas is the purest burn there is in the world, and it's here, and we're shipping it to other countries instead of here. Use it as a bridge, right? As a strategy to hit your goals. Well, no, we can't do that. Well, do you really want to hit the goal? And you start getting in the point of, is it just you love selling salvation, but you actually don't want to execute on salvation?
And I think that, we keep hearing, whether it's VCs or the green agenda or whoever, and I'm not saying this in a way to support or be against it. I'm just saying that we keep hearing technologies coming that's going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And I believe a lot of it is going to come. I think that the technology around batteries and storage of energy and being able to store it longer and cheaper, I think maybe we get to a point where energy costs nothing, but we're not there yet. And I think we do have to utilize some of the tools that we have as a bridge until we do get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just practical and it's sensible. It's a sensible thing to do. I really am a proponent of, let's not make any of this political. We're going to work together to come up with a solution if we believe in these goals. Otherwise, don't have the goals out there. But if you're going to have a goal, let's go achieve it, right?
Just do it. Koop, it's fantastic. I always love our conversations and would like to have some more of them. In fact, I want to talk more with you offline about DC. Yeah, thank you so much, Sam. Thanks for being here, and thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take care of yourself.
If you've enjoyed this episode, you'll enjoy our Brave Ideas newsletter. Subscribe today by tapping on the link in the show notes. And don't forget, I'm always on the lookout for buildings to acquire and reposition with brand-led hospitality. If you know a building I should look at or an owner looking to sell or partner with, drop me a DM
or contact us at bravecorp.co. That's bravecorp, BRAVECORPO.co. Until next time, take care of yourself.